Coincidentally, I was asked about this very subject I'm going to talk about just 24 hours ago, when I thought, next I will talk about what to say to people who are dying and what we should be thinking in our minds, so what we are saying to ourselves when we are dying. Now, of course, this was not a coincidence that I should receive an email asking me to talk about that because of someone being in that situation. Because not that there's no such thing as coincidences, but people are dying all of the time. It is an inevitability. Aging and sickness and death are as a result of birth. So, whatever's wrong with you, whatever your ailment, whether it be curable or terminal, its cause primarily was birth. And in this practice of Buddhism, our ultimate aim is, apart from becoming free from suffering within this lifetime, is to be free from another lifetime, another cycle, where we have to go through it all again. So free from rebirth. Rebirth into what we call samsara, where we have to be born, we have to learn to get attention, scream and cry, eat, eventually sit up, walk, talk, have an education, further education, careers, families, getting old, getting sick, and then dying. And throughout this life cycle, there's so much emphasis on education, on training, on even spiritual practice. We have different religions across the world. And there is Buddhism, which is one that doesn't have eternal heaven or eternal hell, or a god, a godhead, a higher power, or anything to worship or pray to. It is the unique difference that separates it apart from all other religions. In fact, some might even not call it a religion, but just a philosophy or a way of life. However, in all of these practices of ours throughout our lives, we do not rehearse, we do not practice, we do not read about, we do not train for what is the most inevitable, likely, and only thing that will happen to us in all certainty. Everything is unsure. Mai nai, as they say here in Thailand, or anicca, the Pali word, which is usually translated as impermanence, but also can be used to describe the nature of unsureness by way of that impermanence. Nothing is certain, except that these physical bodies and these thinking minds will die. They can die from all manner of causes, but essentially the cause can only be the brain stopping to work, or the heart stopping to work, or the lungs stopping to work. Everything else results thereafter, or is those failures are as a result of other failures, let's say. Disease, and just simply old age. If you're fortunate, there is sudden death through accidents. But what cannot be avoided is this inevitability. But we choose not even to think about it, let alone practice and learn and understand how to deal with it and what to say about it and what to think about it when it comes our way. So, we might be going for a job interview next week. You'll practice over and over again. your answers to some rehearsed questions that you may think may be coming up, or you'll rehearse and practice, revise for exams, rehearse for a play that you're in. You're getting married, you even practice this ceremony. But your death? No, you don't even think about it. It's not happening forever, for a long time. It's not happening to me. Then one day you're faced with it. Unfortunately, someone close to you is dying. And you ask quickly, you ask someone, oh, what do I say? I'm going to visit someone and they're dying. Now, in Buddhism, as Buddhist monks, and really as any serious Buddhist practitioners, we have something called Mara Nusati, which is, Nusati is contemplation of, so we have Buddha Nusati, Dhamma Nusati, Sangha Nusati, which is the contemplation of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. We have the triple gem, we have Mara Nusati, which is the contemplation of death. Now that sounds very morbid, but it really is not. Because what you're doing is you're taking away the mystery, the uncertainty, and stripping it back down, what is something that is feared, which is why it's not thought about, why it's not talked about. Because it's feared, it's the unknown, it's the ultimate uncertainty. Something that is so certain it's going to happen to you, we do not know for sure, unless we are an enlightened being, what will happen after death. And even then, who knows the exact, because it cannot be, the results after death cannot be actually reported directly by anyone whom has, because even if they've come back, they haven't experienced the full thing. So near-death experiences don't count, near being the operative word there. And one has to always be skeptical about what anyone tells you. Even the Buddha said this, don't believe what I say, experience it for yourself. And we chant that every day, to be experienced by the wise, be experienced by oneself. But we can understand it, think about it, rather than burying it, hiding it away, and not thinking about it, not talking about it. This practice of Mara Nusati, contemplation of death, we have as a practice because it helps us understand the faculties of existence, the characteristics of existence, the three fundamental faculties, which are anicca, impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, and anatta, not self, or things being out of our control. So everything to do with these bodies and thinking minds is not within our control. Our personalities are simply as a result of causes and conditions that surround us, and to some extent our own actions of body, speech and mind that have allowed us to be in those causes and conditions that are now making us what we feel is us, what we are, who is me, who is this personality. Like I said in a previous body, this that you're listening to now is not what I was 15, 20 years ago, as a result of causes and conditions surrounding me, which only came about as a result of my own actions of body, speech and mind, creating those circumstances. And this, if you like, is just a basic example and understanding of what karma is. Karma in the Pali, K-A-M-M-A, just means action. And we refer to actions of body, speech and mind being skillful or unskillful, or good or bad. So, of course, you can understand from that in theistic religions, in traditional Western ideas, that someone who's good all their life dies and goes through the pearly gates, and after asking some questions, answering some questions about their life, maybe go into heaven, or if they've been particularly bad, they maybe go to hell, and this is for eternity. And maybe that is the case, and if that is the case, it's fine. It doesn't conflict with Buddhism particularly, although Buddhism does not believe that. There is in fact no belief in Buddhism There is just only understanding of the truths of this very existence that we can experience for ourselves. So there's no requirement to believe anything. But it doesn't mean that we dismiss or don't believe anything. So if heaven and hell is a thing, if they are things, and they are for eternity, and St. Peter will check us off on the list and say, you were bad, you were good, you're going here or you're going there. If you've kept the precepts and you've been good, I think you're going to get in. Okay? You may not have kept all of the 10 commandments, in that swearing to Almighty God that there's just one, and all of the extra add-ons, but if you haven't killed anyone, stolen things, raped or lied or gone around misbehaving drunkenly for your entire life, then the chances are, avoiding all of those and doing no harm and also looking after yourself, this fellow St. Peter's going to say, come on, you can come in, and now you'll see, we were right, you were wrong. So I think it would be okay. You can't really lose as long as you keep precepts and you're good. But we haven't all done that, and you could be on your deathbed having led a very bad life. And some people take this moment to call the priest, get forgiveness and absolution. He'll throw some holy water on them, say some prayers, some prayers, and I'm not sure what they say, to hopefully they are getting forgiveness from their priest by bringing it to mind and recognizing what they've done as being bad. Then maybe they get a ticket, a pass through the pearly gates into heaven. I don't know. But in effect, it's okay to recall those bad things in that moment. But in Buddhism, what we try to practice in terms of understanding death is that it is just another moment, where our karma, these actions of body, speech and mind, continue as a flow into the next moment. So spring doesn't just stop and summer starts. Spring flows into summer. It's not spring and summer separately. 1 minute it's spring and then it's summer. And this nature of ours, this physical body and this thinking mind, may end. But your actions in the Buddhist understanding is of body, speech and mind, which have built up and created a bank of karma, be it good or bad, will influence the direction in which you go into the next moment. Now, even if you are of the opinion that nothing happens after death, still, if your previous actions of body, speech and mind have all been bad, that moment of death will consequently not be good. If all of your actions of body, speech and mind throughout your life have been good, kind and well-natured, then that moment of death will likewise stand more chance of similarly being good and less unpleasant. Because there will be less regret, less worry. And we develop this through this practice of literally understanding death. And the way we do this as monks here in Thailand, being a Buddhist country, is we have this opportunity to regularly be with dying people and also dead people. Since I've been here, have been to a few funerals and a few people who are dying, because this is the practice. Now this works two ways. We don't go to absolve people's sins, or even necessarily for chanting. We don't really call it praying. Some people call it praying, but they don't mean praying in the asking for forgiveness or asking for good luck or good fortune or good health, this kind of praying to a higher power, God or being. No, we recite, we recollect, or we reflect. Our chantings are either paritas, which are protective chants, which are reminding us of the Buddha's teachings and in how step by step they can bring about protection in this very lifetime. There are reflections about how we live and what we do with what we have and whom we associate with. And then there are also suttas, which are the teachings of the Buddha. So these that might be called prayers are simply teachings and reflections on the Buddha's teachings, or the Dharma as we sum it up. So this might be called upon from you when you go to see someone who's dying as a monk. And when I was in England, I was asked to go to the hospital near where I was staying, to a Thai lady who was dying, and she didn't speak English, I was informed. And I, having been quite well practiced in this, knew that she would not be wanting to have much of a conversation anyway, but being from the culture, coming from a culture of Buddhism, from here in Thailand, she would be very familiar with Buddhist chanting. Now there is specific Buddhist chanting associated with funerals and with also with Maranusati, contemplation of death. But that of course isn't appropriate at the moment of death, when someone is about to die. Your primary objective is to uplift their mood, to make them feel happy, content, and relax them. So we don't choose this moment when you're visiting someone who's on their deathbed, literally going to be dying soon, to start giving lessons, preaching about, well, if you'd been good, this would be a lot better. No. It doesn't matter what's gone on in the past. We only recall good things from the past at this point. So I chanted what this lady would have been used to chanting in her school days in school, the Itipiso Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddho. They're very familiar chanting, which would naturally bring about feelings of youth and her growing up in Thailand and school days and beautiful hot summers and all of this stuff. And this is all I could do, go and chant the familiar chants, the joyous chants, which just a few short ones quietly. And just standing there doing that, she kind of put her hands in Anjali as best she could, but she little bit of a smile was there. And that was sufficient for me to know that it was enough. She'd recollected the qualities of the 9 qualities of the Buddha in the Itipiso. Even though she couldn't chant herself, she could listen along. She'd know the chants better than me, coming from this culture. I tried to pronounce them in their way as I've heard it here, as opposed to perhaps how I might chant it in other countries or even on my own, to make it familiar and comforting and reassuring. Because of course she's coming from this Buddhist culture where they do view death a little differently. So this is what we do. In the other respect of us visiting the dying people is we are getting the opportunity to see that, and it's part of Maranusati, it's this contemplation of death. And people that we're visiting know that that's why monks are coming. They know that monks go and see people dying. They know that monks go and see people being cut up in morgues, and they know that we go to funerals after they're dead and before they're put in the crematorium, the thing. We open the casket, the coffin, and we look at the dead body. And somebody, the lay people, they put some stuff on, water, coconut water, and I don't know exactly what they're doing this for, but we watch this and we see this last moment of this physical body, and it will be burnt and it will be no more. And this is often someone that we've known, and it's very real. It's not put to the back of our minds as something that never happens. Now, like I started off saying, this sounds all a bit morbid and not a very joyous way of being. But actually, it softens then the actual event, which, remember, is certain. So when you understand death as the very reality of life, when it comes along, it isn't so bad. the inquiry I had was really, what do I say? What do I do? There's two things here. You are also experiencing this person's death. You are also experiencing loss. So this you must see, like the monk is benefiting from gaining, from experiencing an opportunity to practice contemplation of death, and the person dying is experiencing the benefit of the monk being there to cheer them up, uplift their mood, and give them whatever they require, whether it's ritualistically or within their Buddhist beliefs, or whether it's just some simple listening to or memories from their childhood by listening to chanting. Whatever it may be, it's a two-way thing. When you go to see someone who's dying, you must see this also as your opportunity to really start to deal with and help with grief. Because inevitably when you lose someone close to you, there will be an experience of grief. Now, there is a video on here about that, but for now I'll explain this is really the groundwork, the foundations for when you're close, the person close to you does actually die. It's not that you don't care, but you are a little more equanimous to it than you would be if it had just come out of the blue and you hadn't spent a little bit of time with them towards the end. So you must see it as a very it's a wonderful opportunity to be with the one you love. It is a responsibility, but it's certainly not something you should worry about. You go to attend your children's births if you are a parent, or even your friends if you're accompanying them when they give birth to children. And it is an honor, a wonderful experience, and you don't necessarily worry about it. You might be a little bit anxious if it's a first time birth for you, but you go along to support that person and to see the new baby, and you rejoice and you celebrate. And it's the same. It's just at the other end of this life cycle, and it's a cycle which repeats. So it should be treated the same way and felt the same way. Now, the first thing, when you sit to talk or stand, it's nice if you're going into a home. It's usually a home here in Thailand, but if it's in a hospital, sometimes it's usually a hospital in other countries, then please be aware. It's a little like meditation. Be aware of the environment around you. If there's anything you notice you can make a little nicer, make it nicer if it's going to help the person you're visiting. So if there are flowers there, just make sure they're nice and add to them if you're allowed. If not, it's just quite nice to, not overly so, but don't start tidying and fussing, but just make things nice. Maybe if you're allowed, comfort the person by adjusting their bed or their pillow or something like this. Just really settle into the environment with the person you're going to be spending some time with. And you're going to be worried about what to say. Now, don't worry if you don't have anything to say and you don't say anything at all. There's no need to fill the silences. The person you're seeing is the person going through the experience of dying. And they feel for you as much as you feel for them, especially if you have a close relationship with them. They know that it's awkward for you. So relax and breathe and make yourself comfortable. If you can sit down and just be with the person. This is the most important thing. If you're allowed to touch, hold their hand. And don't talk about yourself. Don't talk about what's going on outside or the weather. Don't talk about other members of the family, what they're up to, where they're going to, and this and that. Don't talk about the news and things going on in the world. So I've just given you things you don't want to talk about, and sorry about that. But you see, this is really of no importance, and unless you are asked. If you're asked, yes, if you're asked, how are you? But give the briefest of answers, because this is probably a polite question. You don't need to start talking about all the things that are going to be going on, because the person who's dying, let's face it, they're not going to be seeing the next episode. So they're not going to start watching episode 1 knowing full well episode 2 isn't coming along. You wouldn't yourself, would you? So talk about things that you can share that will make the person feel good. Now, this is one of those times in Buddhism where we don't so much go with the here and now. I'm always saying, leave the past in the past and the future in the future, and bring your conscious awareness into this very moment. Now, if this is a seasoned practitioner of Buddhism and meditation, a monk, then yes, that's what they will already be doing themselves. And this is how we would be dealing with death ourselves, bringing our conscious awareness right into the present moment. Because after all, death is just another moment. Our consciousness, our citta, with its karma, will flow through one moment into the next, into another physical body and thinking mind. So we need not worry or think about the past, or worry or think about the future. It's just another moment. And these moments are really timeless, okay? It's a more sense of flow. But if this is a person who's not practiced, and it's unlikely to be, then you can, and you should, and you must think of all the good things that you have shared together in your lives. And if you haven't shared anything together in your lives, you can ask. If it's a stranger, if you're visiting someone you don't know well, you can say. You don't need to be shy. You can suggest, I am sure you have been kind to people throughout your life. I've met your children, they love you very much, or I've met your husband, or try and draw some commonality. If there's absolutely no commonality, you can say, I am sure that you've been kind to people in your life, and I am sure that that must give you some reassurance now that you have had a good life, a life worth living. How you word it is very much about the circumstances that you're in, and the conversation as it flows, or even does not flow. But the emphasis should be put on bringing back for recollection all of the good things from the past. Now, the likelihood is, if you're visiting this person and you're not a monk, you're going to know this person very well. So you're going to have lots of things you can draw from. Now, there are going to always be bad things we can recall, but of course we're not going to recall anything like that. You think of the best holidays you had, the best summers you had, the wonderful, celebrations that have gone on throughout your lives that you have in common. And if you need to think of something to talk about, this is what you talk about. And it doesn't have to be in a sentimental way of remembering. It can really be in a very logical step-by-step. Well, wasn't it fortunate that we were together when we went on this particular trip, for us both together to experience this wonderful moment in our lives? Yes, so you're therefore joining your life with their life in a moment in the past, rather than in this moment that's now, where they will no longer be very soon. So you bring a moment of togetherness that was in the past, that was in a very happy, when you were both feeling very good, very happy together. And this is something that's good for recollection. Now, I'm talking to you now assuming that you and the person who's dying are not from a Buddhist culture and not Buddhists, because there would be certain other aspects of talking to another Buddhist. But if you're a Buddhist and they're not a Buddhist, the very last thing you should do, and you should not do, is try to talk about religion. Even if you're a Christian and they're a Christian, or they are a Buddhist, if they're not really asking you, then just leave it be for now. When you go to take your exams, people say, you know, however much you've revised and what have you up until your exam, on the morning of the exam, don't cram just before. Leave it, relax, that's it. You've done all you can do. You're going to pass or you're going to fail at this stage. This is the same. Now is not the time to change your religion. Now is not the time to do better at your religion. I would say now is not the time to get the priest in and have absolution. It's a bit late. But that's for your own faith. That may be necessary. Now is the time to just bring to mind the good things you have done. However bad anyone has been in their lives, there is something they've done which is good and kind. Even if it was just a smile at a stranger a long time ago, just once. This is what you're encouraging the people you're visiting to bring to mind. Now, likewise, the reason monks go to visit people who are dying and to learn about this is when we are dying, similarly, we will be encouraging our thoughts in this same way. Because by encouraging our thoughts positively, in recalling the good we have done rather than the not so good, you put your mind into a more wholesome mind state. So you're continuing with your practice of developing unwholesome mind states and reducing unwholesome mind states, but with a view to that flow generating positivity to move forward. When you die, if that's the end, it's the end. If you are reborn, if there's rebirth, then it's more positive than if you were dwelling in regret, guilt, sorrow, and this nature of things. So we will, unfortunately, and I hope for everyone, it's not soon, it's later rather than sooner, but we will all encounter this. Of course, for certain, our own death, but we will encounter being with people that we love when they are dying. So it's good to bring to mind what you will say in those circumstances. You might be in a car accident one day with someone, and you would be the last person that they're with. They might not even have time to be going to hospital. Now, it's good to know you have the tools, the equipment to really help that person. You might not be able to save their life, but you can certainly ease their death. And that's by no way a miserable, morbid thing to talk about or think about. It's a joyous thing. You'd celebrate it if you knew how to deliver a baby, wouldn't you? You would really celebrate the fact that, oh, a lady gave birth at the bus shelter and I was able to deliver this baby. Or what if a lady falls over with a heart attack, or a man falls over with a stroke and is about to die in front of you? Are you able to deliver them into death? It's as important. And you can have gratitude for knowing that you were there to ease that process, ease that moment, one moment into the next for them. And they, of course, will in turn have gratitude to you for being there for them. we don't talk about ourselves and things going on. We talk about all the good things they've done in their lives, and if there's not many, we can think of something. Now, again, and being sensitive, you can also talk about perhaps this wouldn't always be the case. It would need perhaps to be someone of a religious nature, so that if they think they're going to go to heaven, or they think they're going to Nibbana, whatever their faith, you can talk about the fact that, and don't be shy to talk about the fact that soon their suffering that they're going through at the moment will be over. They will be going to heaven with all of the angels and all of their loved ones from the past, or they will be free from suffering from this lifetime and reborn into a wonderful new realm. You can talk about that. That's a good thing to talk about also, because that is also relating to this moment and what is going to happen. Not necessarily suggesting the future, but confirming in their minds that even this is suffering now, this pain of dying is here in this moment. Like everything else, it's impermanent. It will not last. It will be over soon. And soon they will be free from that suffering. So one words it according to the person you're talking to, and sensitively, if it's appropriate. If it's a parent, then it is certainly the time to express not just love. Love is to some extent intangible, but of course express love, but most importantly is express gratitude for them having given you the opportunity to live this life, for them having given you the opportunity to experience a part of this life with them, for them having given you this opportunity to continue this life after they've gone, but with their memory in your heart and everything you've taken from that. This is very important, because not only do you have gratitude to them, they will have gratitude to you, because you are, as their child, their greatest achievement. You are something they are very proud of. And by expressing your gratitude to them in that way, I'm getting a bit emotional now. By expressing your gratitude to them in that way, they're reminding themselves, you are reminding them of what their greatest achievement is, having brought you into the world. And this is very important. It is the most uplifting thing you can do for them. So bear that in mind if it's a parent that you're with. Sorry, I went a bit off track there. So, you know, if you've experienced this, being with parents when they die, or close things, you will understand that these things that I am saying are very applicable at these moments. And when you're talking to strangers, even so, the emotion is not the same as when it is your sibling, your parent, or a loved one, because you have a much deeper attachment. But this is the very ingredients, this is the very substance you need to introduce into the room, into the, not necessarily conversation, but into the atmosphere between you. That common feeling, and this is far greater than love. I'm again using this theme of gratitude because it is so much more a mutual appreciation of each other's existence. It goes so far towards easing someone's moment from life to death. So I'm thinking there's quite a bit I've forgotten to say now, which probably means that I'm getting towards the 40-minute time for me speaking, and of course I can always speak about it a little bit more later. I hope that this isn't a situation you're in currently, but if you are, another thing to understand is that it is, you feel like it's unique to you, but actually everybody is going to go through it. I mean, not everybody will be with someone when they're dying, but most people will be, because I started off by saying it was not a coincidence to get that email, because by the very mathematics of the fact that everybody on this planet is going to die, the chances are you're going to be with someone when they die, whether they're close to you or not. And you need to understand and know how to be for them, but also for you, because you're being left behind. And if you don't know how to be with them, if you don't feel comfortable, you feel too uncomfortable, it will become another bad experience in your life, and you'll put it behind you and you'll forget about it. And it's much better to help you with your recovery from grief if you can take that moment with you into the future as being supportive. Well, we spent his last moments at least sharing a good feeling, wholesome mind states together. And then that you can keep on board, and it will support you in future grief. So I think that's enough to say on that subject today. I hope it's useful and interesting, and don't take it as something depressing. Please look on the positive sides of it and think, when you are going to die and it's your last moment, it is very important that your last thoughts with this thinking mind are of a positive, wholesome nature. You have a wholesome mind state. Now, of course, the ongoing practice of Buddhism is going towards that continuously, improving. This is the practice. But if you're new to Buddhism, or for people who have never encountered the practice, just knowing this from now, that, okay, I'm about to die, there's nothing I can do about it, but let's just think about something good I've done in my life, something happy, something that made me smile, or something I did for other people, how I was kind to someone. And that will elevate your both mental and physical feelings, and will not only alleviate the physical pain you might be going through, but the emotional pain that you might be going through. So I will leave that with you as food for thought, and thank you for watching.